prosecuting authority decide to prosecute people, we also see it as a victory in the sense that at least equality before the law is there. So in that sense, we are happy about the fact that the NPA has decided to prosecute former President Jacob Zuma. That is something that Advocate Nel was ready to prosecute. But of course, we also see it as a victory if the NPA does that. We're also happy about the fact that we see movement with regard to the Guptas, that there is investigations ongoing, and one court case we know has already started. For us, that is also a move in the right direction, and we regard that as a victory. With regard to the cases that are not prosecuted by the National Prosecuting Authority yet, I can give you some feedback on the Grace Mugabe case. As you know, we represent Gabriella Engels, that was assaulted by Mrs. Grace Mugabe. What then happened is the South African government gave Grace Mugabe diplomatic immunity. We just immediately started with a process to set aside that diplomatic immunity, and we are happy to announce that the court case on that issue will be heard on the 10th and 11th of May in the North Gauteng High Court. We believe we have a strong case. After setting aside the diplomatic immunity, we can then ask for the authorities to go ahead with prosecutions, but if they don't, we are ready to do so on behalf of Ms. Gabriella Engels. Then with regard to Duduzane Zuma, as you know, we've asked for a nollie prosecute certificate to prosecute him ourselves on behalf of the Dube family with regard to a motor accident, culpable homicide case against Mr. Zuma Jr. Then what happened is Sean Abrams then decided to give Mr. Duduzane Zuma the opportunity to make representations. Those representations had to be in on the 23rd of March, so it's nearly a month ago. Unfortunately, Mr. Abrams did not ask the Dube family to also make representations, but we believe it's a fair time to give Sean Abrams a month to take his decision. So at the beginning of May, we will follow up, and if there is not going to be prosecutions, we will start with the process to privately prosecute Mr. Duduzane Zuma. Then Advocate Jiba, you know that we also indicated that we act on behalf of General Johan Boysen to prosecute Advocate Jiba privately. Then on the 22nd of December last year, the court decided that the NPA's decision not to prosecute Advocate Jiba was unlawful, and they set that decision aside. We are now still waiting for Sean Abrams to take a decision if they are now going to indeed prosecute Advocate Jiba. We will follow that up in the beginning of May, and to make sure that we get the certificate in that regard. And then the latest one, the one of Monique Oosterhout, where there was an assault by her husband, Mr. Bezos. We asked for a nollie prosecute certificate in that case. We received feedback from the National Prosecuting Authority that they don't want to give us such a certificate. So we are preparing to take that matter to court. Of course, when we're going to send a letter to the NPA indicating that we are going to court so that they can reconsider once again. But that might be the first case that we take to court to try and force the NPA to do their job and to give us a nollie prosecute certificate. That is just the feedback on what Advocate Nel has been doing up until now. At the end, you would also be able to ask questions in that regard. Then we come to the matter at hand today, and that is the private prosecution that we are planning. I can say that we are planning to prosecute Mr. Julius Malema on charges of corruption and fraud. But Advocate Nel will be able to give you all the detail in that regard. All I can say, if somebody portrays themselves as somebody that's fighting for the poor, when such a person, like in the case of Mr. Malema, goes ahead and steals state money or taxpayers' money, money that should benefit the poor, we believe such a person should be held accountable, and that is why we are going ahead with this case. I'm just going to move the microphones.
Good morning from our side. I would like to discuss the detail about the matter that's commonly referred to as the on-point matter. A very interesting aspect that very few people know is that Mr. Kriel, sitting next to me, is in fact a complainant in that particular matter. Mr. Kriel laid a charge on the 24th of July 2011 that led to the later prosecution of Mr. Malema and his co-accused. A prosecutor was assigned to the matter and drafted the indictment. Now, the indictment consists of the following charges. There were 2 racketeering charges, 5 corruption charges, 4 fraud charges, and 40 counts of the contravention of Section 6A, B, and C of the Prevention of the Organised Crime Act. Now, this particular matter, after the accused appeared, was struck off the roll on the 4th of August 2015 because one of the accused, Mr. Dichabe, was ill and he could not stand trial. The understanding at the time, like with all these kind of matters where it's struck off the roll because somebody cannot stand trial, was that the NPA would monitor the matter and ensure that the matter is enrolled again. What we did is we only did a superficial search of information that's currently in the public domain, and that portrayed what appears to be a healthy Mr. Dichabe, having recovered fully from his illness. Social media photographs depict active social gatherings, family holidays, business transactions, purchase of high-powered, expensive sports cars, participation in cycling events, and remarkably, Mr. Dichabe chose to depict a picture of him and President Ramaphosa as his current, as we speak, picture on Twitter, profile picture on Twitter. So what we did is, on the 19th of March, we submitted a written inquiry to establish if and when the NPA intend to re-enroll the matter. We shared with them information we received, and that is that the matter was taken away from the prosecutor that was assigned to the matter, and it was handed over to the Priority Crimes Litigation Unit. Mr. Pretorius responded to us. Mr. Pretorius indicated that the NPA would indicate on or before August 2018 whether or not the PCLU and or the NPA would prosecute. The letter would form part of your pack, and I would just like to read paragraph 4. Paragraph 4, Mr. Pistorius indicated the PCLU is presently considering the matter with a view to decide whether or not to reinstitute charges. Now, we also asked a question from the NPA for why it was referred to the PCLU, the Priority Crimes Litigation Unit, and Mr. Pretorius responded saying that the National Director has a discretion to allocate cases to the PCLU. He also implied that the complexity of the matter and the fact that it has both elements of organized crime and commercial crime caused the National Director to transfer the matter to the PCLU. We all know that the commercial matters or organized crime are not matters ordinarily dealt with by the PCLU and does not form part of their mandate. We find the reasons given by the NPA peculiar, because what we know is a prosecutor, a very senior prosecutor in the NPA, somebody that I know, somebody from the Special Commercial Crimes Unit, was allocated the matter. He drafted the charge sheet. He indicated to court in August when they appeared that the matter was court ready. He indicated that the state was ready to proceed. I infer from the readiness of the state that he consulted with witnesses. It's very interesting to think why, or peculiar to think why the NPA would then decide to move the matter away from the prosecutor that dealt with the matter, drafted the indictment, and hand it over to the PCLU for the PCLU to consider afresh whether or not to reinstate charges. We find it peculiar, as the only obstacle at the time had been the fact that Mr. Dechaba was not ready or well enough to proceed with trial. We hope that paragraph 4 of this particular letter does not indicate the fact that the PCLU would now review the decision taken by the Special Commercial Crimes Unit. It is, however, interesting to observe that this particular unit at the MPA have been responsible for the charges against Minister Gordon, the charges against Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, the prosecution of Mr. McBride and members of IPIT, and the charges against the rogue unit, all of which resort outside of the mandate of the PCLU. Another very interesting matter that I think is in the public domain, that I would just like to reiterate, is that we know that the successful asset forfeiture confiscation order was obtained against the farm scale crawl that was purchased by Mr. Malema on the information we have with the proceeds of this fraudulent scheme. The application for the confiscation of the farm was not opposed by anyone, and the farm was then sold in auction for 2.4 million rand. It is also peculiar that somebody would just abandon the farm or abandon the proceeds of a farm that was lawfully purchased. So what we're now doing is although we find it strange that the PCLU will need 4 months to decide to re-enroll a matter where the only obstacle is the fact that one accused was not available to proceed, but we will allow Mr. Pretorius to make his decision. We hope it's not on but before, and if not, we will certainly prosecute this matter privately. We think it's an excellent matter to develop the law, to give society an opportunity to deal with corruption and fraud of that scale. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Advocate Nel. Just shortly from my side, I think if you search the internet, you will get a lot of information with regard to On Point. But just a short overview, On Point is a company where Julius Malema's Ratanang Family Trust, of who he's the sole trustee, has shares or 50% in that On Point company. On Point was appointed by the Limpopo Department of Roads to help them, assist them with their work. Part of the job On Point had to do was to give advice on tenders that were given to people. And as we know, the companies that got tenders through this process then paid back money into the account of On Point. So that is corruption, and that is something that we believe is a strong case to prosecute. And it's actually ludicrous that the National Prosecuting Authority it's now 2 years and 8 months since the case was scrapped in the Polokwane High Court. Why it's not going ahead, and that's why we believe it's time that we intervene and make sure that Julius Malema is brought to book and that nobody is above the law. Even if Mr. Malema thinks he's above the law, he's not above the law, and we will make sure that he is held accountable. Is there any questions? Sir.
Oh yeah, Maluku saying SABC News. It seems the matter is still under consideration based on the information that Mr. Advocate just right now. What your concern? Why are you continuing to prosecute while you get the letter that this matter is still under consideration? That's question one. Question two: do you have a certificate to prosecute on this matter? And then lastly, what are your interest in this in the matter? What is AfriForum's interest in that matter? Because according to private prosecution, whoever brings the matter must have interest. Thank you very much.
Firstly, the only way that you can ever hope to institute private prosecution is once the NPA have decided not to. We've set out our concerns about the way they deal with the matter and the way that they're handling the matter, and we want to make it known that we are keen to prosecute privately. As far as the interest is concerned, our only interest, as we said from the start, was equality before the law. So this is one of those matters. We said from the start that we're interested in those people that are sheltered against prosecution because of who they are and or political affiliation. And we're concerned that this might be one of those issues. And the fact that it's been more than 2 years, the fact that it's now transferred, taken away from a prosecutor, all those facts assisted in us in taking this step to make it known that we would want to privately prosecute this matter. And we think it's an excellent matter to develop the law.
If I just may add to that, I think we have a problem with the fact that the matter is under consideration because there was a decision taken to prosecute. One person was sick. Nothing has changed since. So it's a no-brainer. The prosecution should just go ahead, and that is why we are intervening to put pressure on the National Prosecuting Authority to simply do their work. With regard to the interest, also, as you've mentioned, you have to have a specific interest in a matter to be able to privately prosecute. We have said from the start that we want to broaden the law in that regard, because in this case, every one of us that pays tax has an interest. The AfriForum members we represent that work hard for their money, that pay taxes on a monthly basis, they have a right to demand that those taxes that they pay should not be stolen through corruption by people like Julius Malema. And we will also in that regard indicate that we have a direct interest because it is our money that's being stolen, it's your money that was being stolen, and we believe Julius Malema, therefore, should be held accountable in the interests of taxpayers in this country. Yes, what we have indicated in our letter already to the NPA that we intend to privately prosecute, but what we need to do now is to wait until August when we get feedback from Mr. Pretorius, and if he says they're not going to prosecute, then of course we will ask for the nolli prosecute certificate. Barry?
Morning, Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News. Just on this question related to the matter being referred to the PCLU. Now, as we understand it, as you've explained, a decision was taken by the Serious Commercial Crimes Unit to prosecute. But now, as indicated, Turi Pretorius is now re-evaluating this. Is he in a position to lawfully review that decision that has already been taken? What does the law say there? I mean, is there any standing for him to make this comment here? And then, sorry, I digress onto another matter related to the NPA. AfriForum laid charges last week against NDPP Abrams related to a vehicle that was allegedly procured from funds from the Witness Protection Program. A statement came from the NPA saying that this was an effort to besmirch the name of Sean Abrams and it was an attack on the integrity of the NPA. Can you offer any comment on that particular matter, please?
First things first, the first issue is no. In terms of the law, Mr. Pretorius does not have the authority to review a decision taken by the SCCU. In terms of the Constitution, the National Director of Public Prosecution will have a right to review, but that's not what we've been told. And we don't know of anything that happened since the matter was struck of the roll in August up until now that would cause anybody to review the matter. We've also not been informed that if anybody asked for the matter to be reviewed. So the first answer is no. The second answer is, Mr. Bateman, is that indeed so. That response by the National Prosecuting Authority when our anti-corruption unit laid a charge against the NPA and Mr. Abrams was peculiar. Firstly, all the information we received there, we made it clear that we received it from members of the NPA. Members of the NPA indicated to us that they made information known on the private corruption line, and that the Internal Management Unit, Integrity Management Unit of the NPA investigated that matter. Indeed, the NPA's media release confirmed that. saying that the IMU investigated the matter, but it's sometimes more important to read what a response is silent about, more important than what it really indicates. The report by the NPA never indicated what the result of the investigation of the IMU was. The two other issues that I thought was very important, the NPA in their press release admitted that a vehicle was bought with witness protection money and that it was used by the National Director of Public Prosecutions. So the allegations made, they confirmed. We say that that's unlawful. If not, certainly it's worth investigation. And the third issue is, and that was the perhaps the most peculiar, the NPA then in their response indicated that Mr. Adam never went to Zeerust or somewhere. We never made that allegation, that Mr. Adams went to Zeerust. We made allegations that other people abused travel cost. But the response by the NPA was silent as far as that. So, yeah, we found it strange. This one.
Colin Gumby from ENCA. First question, why do you believe, because I think it's quite clear from your statement that you see Mr. Dichabe posing in pictures with the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa. And so the explanation there, in your words, to use your words, you say you feel that these individuals are being sheltered from prosecution. Do you believe that Julius Malema, alongside his co-accused, are being sheltered from prosecution? Number two, the EFF will say, I don't speak for them of course, but they will say that this is perhaps motivated by their fight for expropriation of land without compensation. Is this at all motivated by that?
I will allow Mr. Kriel to answer the difficult questions. Let me just deal with the easy ones. The easy ones first. I've made no allegations whatsoever about the fact that Mr. Dichabe appeared on his profile picture with Mr. Ramaphosa. It was just interesting to mention. Yes, if I look at the matter and I look at the facts up until now, I look at the time that lapsed, the only argument I could think of is that there must be some reason why the NPA decided not to. And this particular reason, it could be political of nature, because somewhere, if they're not prosecuted, and if there's a review of this prosecution, there's certainly some shelter against prosecution, and that's what we're all about. We said we focus on people that are sheltered against prosecution because of their political connection and or just because of who they are and who they're connected with. And certainly, I cannot see from the facts of the matter and from what I've heard and from what I've read from Mr. Pretorius' response that there's any other reason.
Thank you, Advocate. Maybe I can just add, if any normal citizen was guilty of or made themselves guilty of corruption such as this, the question is, would it take more than 2 years and 8 months for such a prosecution to proceed? And the answer in that regard is no. So why does it happen to Julius Malema? We can only speculate on that, but what is common cause at the moment? We know that the current president invited Mr. Julius Malema back to the ANC. We saw Fikile Mbalula saying that Julius Malema belongs in the ANC, and we've also had many other leaders doing so. So we can only hope that the fact that the ANC wants him back does not play a role here, but I'm not going to make any allegations in that regard by simply just saying we cannot understand how it takes so long to prosecute. With regard to your second question, of course, the EFF will make a lot of allegations with regard to why they are being targeted, and that is usual behavior of somebody that has made themselves guilty of criminal behavior. They would always want to blame someone else. We are only the messenger. The question is, what is the message? Was there tender corruption in Limpopo with regard to On Point, where Mr. Julius Malema was involved in? And the answer to that question is yes. Is Mr. Malema currently being prosecuted by the National Prosecuting Authority? The answer is no. Should Mr. Malema be held accountable for corruption? The answer is yes. And those are the questions that are of importance to us. But of course, it's important also to send out a strong message that nobody is above the law. That is what the private prosecution unit is about, to say there should be equality before the law, and if it should not matter if your surname is Malema or Kriel. If you transgress the law, you should be prosecuted, and in this case, Julius Malema should be held accountable for plundering the state coffers.
Sipho Sterman from SABC TV News. Looking at your history, which we're just illustrating right now, of this private prosecution, you look at Duduzane Zuma, you look at the Great Mugabe assault case, and now the Malema case. It seems like you often have political scores to settle. And you mentioned that this private unit was all about equality before the law. But one cannot run away from the heavy political cases that you seem to be accusing. And I think it's well known that you are no fan of Julius Malema, and obviously, as Koli said, there's this land issue, and in the past there was the song that you were against that you were singing. It just seemed like a settling of political scores of some sort.
Yeah, firstly, on a technical issue, we've made it clear all along, and it's the law, that you can only get involved in those matters where the NPA decided not to prosecute. It's not a parallel prosecution stream. We cannot elect our cases. We can only deal with cases once the NPA has decided not to prosecute. So I've challenged people along, and I hate the word challenge, but I have, to indicate which of the matters we've overseen and not dealt with, and why we've elected these matters. So it's open there, and it's a challenge to the public. Indicate to us those matters where the NPA decided not to prosecute, where we have decided not to intervene. These are the matters where people are sheltered from prosecution. These are the matters available to us to deal with at this stage. And therefore, you can only have one mandate, and that is to deal with matters where people are sheltered against prosecutions. But again, I hate to challenge people, because I really do. But please indicate those matters where, on the different political spectrum, where we have declined to get involved in as far as prosecution is concerned. If we have that, then certainly you can ask me a question, and I'll have to reply to that particular question.
Maybe if I can just add, it is true, you are correct, that the cases we take on are high-profile people with political links. But those are not the cases chosen by us. It's in fact chosen for us by the NPA, because if politics plays a role, those people not prosecuted will be people with political links. And those are the people that we need to prosecute to make sure that there is equality before the law. These people that you've mentioned, if the NPA simply did their job and prosecute these people without letting politics play a role, we would have not been brought into the picture. So it's actually the NPA that decides which cases we should take on by not doing their job because of political and other reasons. With regard to the EFF, the fact is, if you're going to get, if you're a person that speeds and you get 10 tickets from the traffic department, you should not say, well, the traffic department has a grudge against me, because you are a person that continuously transgresses the law in various ways. And if Mr. Malema behaves in a manner that he transgresses the law, that he polarizes the community, that he makes racist statements, he cannot cry when people take him on those issues. And we will continue to take him on as long as he does something that is not in the interest of everybody in the country. As long as he transgresses the law, we will do so without apologizing for that.
If I may have a follow-up, please. You mentioned that these leaders like Malema, who makes racist comments that are not in the interest of everybody in the country, that you will then take him on. But where do we see AfriForum now as a whole, let alone this private prosecution? AfriForum, showing interest in issues that affect the rest of the country. One, we had a spate of killings of young women last year, body parts being cut, bodies being burnt. We've never had AfriForum speaking out loud in those type of situations. So it seems that your prosecution and your speaking out is very selective, that certain issues that affect the greater public, we don't hear your voice. And you spoke out recently. We had the Vicky case where she was, prosecuted and for her racist remarks. You also spoke against that. So it just seems that you have a particular interest that you only care about. And I'm just wondering, then why should the rest of the country concern themselves with issues that you find to be of interest to yourselves?
Yeah, I think one should be careful not to take to heart the propaganda by people like the EFF. Simply look at AfriForum and go and read what we are doing and what we have said all along. And there are numerous examples. 3 weeks ago, we started a court case on behalf of a community in Kandla because there was not a school built for them. That case will be running over the next year, and you will see us there. We've gone to court on behalf of the Walmanstal Communal Property Association. When racist statements are made by white people, we condemn them, and we are on record to do so. When we fix potholes, it is potholes that can be used by the community at large. When we take on Julius Malema for stealing taxpayers' money, the people that are mostly affected by that are the poor. Those are the people that need the state resources to help them. That is something in the interest of the broader community. When we take on the Rizani Zuma, it is done on behalf of the Dube family. When we take on Grace Mugabe, it's done on behalf of Gabriella Engels. So we've taken on all these issues. The double standards does not lie with AfriForum. The double standards lies with the prosecuting authorities. We condemned Vicky Momberg's behavior in the strongest possible terms, and that is on record. She is sent to jail for 2 years, but if you go and look at the major that said elderly white person's eyes should be stabbed out and his tongue should be cut off, he only got a warning from the, specifically in that regard, from the South African Defence Force. If you look at the case like Vilapi Kumalu, who said that whites should be killed like Hitler killed the Jews, he only got the slap over the fingers from the civil service where he works. So the double standards does not lie with us. The double standards lies with the prosecuting authorities that don't take all these matters seriously. We will prosecute any person that makes himself guilty of corruption, and there is no prosecution by the National Prosecuting Authority. The same with regard to racism. The reason why we are taking on certain cases is not because double standards on our side, but because of double standards in our society, that those people are not acted against are people that are protected because of the double standards that we have.
Just out of interest, you say that Dichabe is posing in pictures and driving fancy cars. Have you been able to establish if the on-point engineering account is still active?
As far as we're concerned, we will only have powers to deal with these matters once we get a certificate. We don't want to exceed our powers. We don't want to harass people. We will have powers to deal with this matter once the NPA decided not to. If we as private people now start investigating too closely, we might be, people might say we harass people, and we don't want to do that. For us, it's about equality before the law and prosecution. My office only focuses on prosecutions. So once we get the power to prosecute, the authority to prosecute, then we look at all those factors. What we did was a superficial investigation on what's in the public domain. I mean, that took us half a day to gather what we did. And certainly somebody with the authority of the prosecution service and the South African Police Service could really investigate and find out exactly what's going on.
Are there any questions on this side? Is that fine? Yes.
Just follow up here. There's a letter here which you got from Mr. Pistorius, if I'm not mistaken. And earlier you answered my question that the certificate to prosecute, you'll only worry about it at the end of August, later this year. Actually, you are here to announce what are you going to do? What is it that I should say you are going to do? Because you are waiting until August for the prosecution stage.
What you should say, sir.
Nothing happens. What's happening now until NPA does nothing? Until NPA does nothing, what will you be doing?
When we launched this unit, we said it was unique. It's unique in the world. It's never happened. We're developing law as we go. What we're doing is we're informing the NPA that we want to privately prosecute, and they should take a decision as soon as they can. They've indicated to us that it's August. We would have liked them to say today that if they would prosecute or not. If they say today, we'll take steps tomorrow. But we, at the mercy of the NPA, dictating that it would take them 4 months more to decide if a person is well enough to go to trial. So the time frame is not within our power. If they say today that they're not willing to prosecute, we'll take steps tomorrow. So that's what we have to go through a process. That's the law. We have to follow the law. We don't want to work outside the parameters of the law as it is. I hope that the law as far as private prosecutions will be developed over years, and it will be easier and more streamlined. But that is the law that we have to deal with currently. So that's all we can do.
Maybe I can just go further, and you ask, why do we make these announcements? Unfortunately, it has been shown that in many instances, public pressure is needed to bring the NPA to make sure that they do their job. We know how long many of the cases has not been given attention to. If you take, for instance, the evidence with regard to the Guptas has been known for a very long time, but you needed specifically public pressure. And the fact that the NPA has waited 2 years and 8 months and has done nothing, it means that they need some pressure to be put on them. And that is why we are playing our role to now go public to say, we want to make sure this is prosecuted. You have now your chance until August to do so, otherwise we will do it. So that is very important. By simply saying nothing, you would we will just have to wait another 2 years and 8 months, and something will not happen even then. So it is very important that we go public with what we intend to do, so that the NPA knows we are going to do our job if they are not.
Sorry, just a quick response on Twitter from Mr. Malema himself. I just want to know what your reaction to it. And I suppose he just responded to this, it was just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
He says, "Bring it on, the bloody racist. You don't scare me at all. I'm born ready. No white man will decide my destiny." That's the response on Twitter. We suspect is obviously from him. So he says, "Bring it on."
From the prosecution side, I mean, you must know that we've dealt with other matters where most matters people say, "I want my day in court, please give me my day in court." And when that happens, there's lots of representations and attempts to avoid it. I will not get into a personal discussion with anybody that I've ever prosecuted. I haven't. My record is clear. You will not find a personal comment against any accused that I ever prosecuted. And it's a challenge, you can check up on it. I only do my job. I'm a prosecutor. I look at the law and I apply the law to the facts. So I will not, from the prosecution's side, will not respond to any of those matters, even if they're very personal and challenging.
Yes, we will be speaking in court. We will answer to his allegations in court.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
There was one question belated.
Okay.
We can have private
Summary in Afrikaans.
summary in Afrikaans.
Okay.
Just the announcement that you are going to prosecute Malema and why you're doing it. Sorry, SABC, we need all languages covered.
Okay, let me just gather my thoughts.
Okay. Maybe I should start off. From AfriForum side, we believe in equality. I have to do it in Afrikaans. Van AfriForum se kant af glo ons 'n gelykheid voor die reg en dat mense wat die staatskas plunder tot verantwoording geroep moet word. Daar is feite wat sê dat meneer Julius Malema het homself skuldig gemaak aan tenderbedrog. Hy is aanvanklik na 'n klag deur AfriForum is daar met vervolging teen hom begin. Maar daardie saak is op die 4 Augustus 2015 teruggetrek omdat een van die beskuldigdes siek was en is nou meer as 2 jaar en 8 maande daarna is hy nie vervolg nie. En ons glo hy moet verantwoording doen, veral in 'n geval soos die van meneer Malema wat homself voorhou as iemand wat vir die armes veg. Om die staatskas te plunder jy eintlik daardie bronne wat armes moet help. En ons glo hy moet sy verantwoording doen in die hof en daarom gaan ons volstoom voort met die klagtes van korrupsie en bedrog. Sou die nasionale vervolgingsgesag nie die saak herinstel nie.
Ons is bekommerd. Ons het 'n skrywe gerig aan die vervolgingsgesag en ons het aan die vervolgingsgesag gevra of hulle beplan om die saak weer op die rol te sit en wanneer hulle beplan om dit te doen. Ons het ook vir die vervolgingsgesag aangedui dat ons oor inligting beskik wat aandui dat die saak van die aanklaer weggeneem is en oorhandig is aan 'n eenheid binne in die hoofkantoor van die vervolgingseenheid, dis die prioriteitsmisdaadeenheid. En ons wonder daaroor. Ons wonder waaroor die saak van die aanklaer wat die klagstaat opgestel het, wat gereed was vir verhoor, wat aangedui het vir die hof dat hy gereed is vir verhoor, wat sekerlik met die getuies moes konsulteer het, waarom 'n saak van hom sou weggeneem word en oorhandig word aan 'n ander eenheid om 'n besluit te neem om te vervolg of nie. Dit is 'n verdere bekommernis vir ons dat die meneer Pretorius aangedui het dat hulle het 'n paar maande nodig om te besluit om te vervolg of nie. Die saak is aanvanklik van die rol geskrap omdat een van die beskuldigdes te siek was om voort te gaan met die verhoor. Ons het vinnig in 'n oggend gekyk na sosiale media en op die sosiale media het ons vasgestel dat meneer De Chabe volgens wat ons kon sien heel gesond was. Ons het ook gesien wat interessant is vir ons en is bloot interessant dat hy gebruik as sy profiel op Twitter 'n foto van hom en meneer Ramaphosa. Ons het gesien net bloot na foto's te kyk in die sosiale media dat daar verskeie vakansies is, familievakansies, die kope van baie duur sportmotors. So ons meen dat as ons vinnig kyk dat meneer De Chabe gesond genoeg is en ons meen dat dit nie 3 maande tyd nodig het. Die enigste iets wat moet besluit word deur die vervolgingsgesag is al die beskuldigdes beskikbaar, is al die beskuldigdes gesond en om dan voort te gaan met die saak. Ons maak dit duidelik dat as die vervolgingsgesag nie voortgaan met vervolging nie, ons sekerlik sal vervolg. Ons dink is 'n uitstekende saak om die reg uit te brei, om gemeenskap die geleentheid te gee om sake van korrupsie en bedrog op hierdie skaal aan te spreek.
Net 'n belangrike ding is op die oomblik sien mens dat meneer Malema optree asof hy verhewe oor die reg is en dit is baie belangrik dat ons baie duidelik boodskap uitstuur dat niemand is verhewe oor die reg nie, selfs nie as jy van Malema is nie.
Dankie.
Daar sê. Dankie. Jaliboga.
Okay, ek moet net